Honestly, this goes against my better judgment, but it's 2 in the afternoon. I played some Guild Wars for a while. I've worked on some other things. I've reached that point where I feel like streaming again, and, you know, it's been a while since we looked at Matt Powell. So, I guess we're going to look at least one Matt Powell video, maybe two, maybe three, if I don't want to give up on everything after hearing his monotonous voice ramble on the same crap as Daddy Holvin does. Yeah. So, go on and click the buttons here like I love to do. Just click all the buttons. Something will work. Show where I'm Matt Powell official. I still want to know what the deal is with all these clowns putting official in their names. Kent did it, Matt Powell does it, others do it, as if someone's trying to impersonate these guys, and as if that matters. Because if someone was making a fake channel, they could have just called it Matt Powell official their own right. I mean, I don't get this trend. It's fucking stupid, honestly. But let's look at Christian destroys the Noah's flood is a myth argument. Let's see.
As many as 40% of Americans believe in a global flood.
Hey, it's our friend Holy Kool-Aid.
Usually the literal story of Noah. But what if I showed you how we know for an absolute fact?
What's bad is that I recognize people more by like their avatars combined with their voices than I do their actual features in their voices. And it's like even people who look like their avatars, it's like I still have to rebuild that association after you finally see the face because it's so alien. It's like I see the actual person, which is fine. It's just it's so different. I'm not used to it.
Fact that this story never happened.
I would go 25 years of my life without ever studying the story's historicity. I would go on to research every single drop of evidence put forward to support the Bible story as being historically true.
I really don't like the music being played in the background, and by that I mean that's probably some shit that's going to get this flagged with Creator Commons license you can't monetize.
I would then reread the Bible account and address very important questions that had popped up into my mind over the process. A process of which optimism...
Looks like it's at least the only one who's chatting. Seriously, don't you feel like popping up with saying hey in the chat? You're watching, feel free.
Turned to skepticism, turned to mental despair. How through isolating and dissecting just one Bible story, sent the infallibility of the entire Bible crashing down.
A lot of people are under the impression that Noah's flood never happened. And if you tell people that you believe in biblical creationism, sometimes they will laugh at you. But let me
Yes, because it's a silly idea.
tell you, biblical creationism and Noah's flood are two verifiable things that you can show to be accurate.
No, they're not. Otherwise, they would match the scientific consensus. Or I should say the scientific consensus would match them. But it doesn't. Nothing matches your flood. And what you're about to spout is the same tired old stuff we've always heard that's been debunked to the nth degree, so this is just going to be nth plus 1.
In this video, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why Noah's flood is a fact. Number 1 is because you find sea life on every single mountain. There are entire...
Have you been to every single mountain and done excavations on them? Has anyone been to every single mountain and done excavations on them? No, but you do find marine life on mountains, usually primitive marine life. Stuff from a long time ago. Not that you believe in a long time ago, but that's when the stuff's from. Because it was all ocean floor at a point. Not under the ocean, like a global flood, but that land was once seabed. Tectonic shift happens. This is a known fact. We can model those movements in the past and future movements and see what's going on where, when. And what's really cool is our models match the species that we find in this former seabed material that's now mountaintop. that, 300 million years ago, this would have been ocean floor. Oh, look, we're finding ocean life from 300 million years ago. That's crazy. How does it all add up? That's the thing creationists can never get at, other than claiming conspiracy, is why all of science backs all the other aspects up. It's so beautiful, and you just cry foul because it doesn't match some Bronze Age myth.
Whales that we find perfectly preserved on top of mountains. We also find gigantic oysters, some as big as cars, on the Andes Mountains. How did they get there? And not to mention, these oysters are often sealed shut, and they were not even able to open when they died, as oysters and clams normally do. Evidence.
What are they? Brachiopods, I think. Not all of them close. Not all of them open. Not all of them behave the exact same way. Some species don't at all. Try harder, kid. And yeah, I'm going to call Matt Powell a kid. He's younger than me, so fuck it. I'm going to be disrespectful.
Evidence number 2 would be polystrata fossils. Think about it. We find trees that are upside down in some cases that are penetrating multiple layers of the geologic column.
He said penetrating, and as I keep saying, they're not going through multiple geologic layers, multiple eras. It's individual layers, seasonal layers, swamp deposits, and the like. And a lot of them ain't anything that would actually be defined as a tree. Also, polystrate fossils is a term only used by creationists so that they don't look for what they actually are, which I forget the name of because I'm exposed to it so rarely. Because it's one of those things that in the grand scheme doesn't matter. And if it mattered like you act like it did, scientists would talk about it more. But they don't. It's understood.
Now, if these layers slowly accumulated over millions of years, why is it that you have a tree that connects many of these layers? That means that the layers are an identical age, because trees aren't just going to stand there for millions of years waiting to be fossilized as sediment layers.
How about a couple of years? How about a couple of seasons? 10 years. I've seen trees stay up for a while, buddy. Millions, no. That layering isn't millions. This is not what you're claiming it to be. I say that like we don't already know it, but I have to stress that and call you a liar. Yes, you're a lying liar, Matt Powell, much like Kent Hovind is a lying liar. Are you a spousal abuser as well? I don't know. That's not relevant to the discussion and thus is not an ad hominem, because whether or not you do spousal abuse is irrelevant to the bullshit you're saying, but I do dislike you as a person for some of the other repugnant things you said, so it wouldn't surprise me if you're also a hyper-misogynistic piece of shit, on top of being absolutely wrong about absolutely everything. Channeling my inner R and Raw there. I'm on fire right now. This is going good. Yeah. We're gonna keep at this.
Are slowly forming around them. It tells us that these trees were placed there by a cataclysmic process and not by slow and gradual change in the Earth's crust. Of evidence would be coal seams. Some of them are at.
Brock is relaying a very important message. Hey Yamato, Jesus told me that he loves you. Source, trust me, bro. Well, that's very nice. And you are a source I will trust. So therefore, if Jesus loves me, then he'll understand why I feel the way I do, and therefore he will not punish me for disbelief because he understands the reasons, and he's going to be my buddy, even if he isn't around, because that's how someone who actually loves you would behave. So either way, we all win. Hear that, guys? We all win. Game over. The debate's done. Everybody wins. Except Bob over there. You lose, Bob.
Actually over 100 feet thick. Now, coal is made up of vegetation and swamp material and plants and trees that get smashed together between sediments. That's how coal is formed. And so in order...
Sud, is that the person he was screaming at? You will go to hell! Because if so, yeah, that's straight up abuse right there. Ah, it's doing that thing again. I really need to just use the letter K on my keyboard, but no, I gotta hold on to the mouse.
In order to get a seam that's over 100 feet thick, you would have to have a globally cataclysmic event to be able to create such coal seams. The fourth piece of evidence would be...
No, you wouldn't. I don't know the exact details, but it's well understood by the people who understand the processes which form coal seams. They've explained it fine.
Rock arches. Think about it. Rocks are actually breaking down. This mountain that's behind me is being broken down by gravity over time. Gravity is causing everything to erode flat. Could
No. That's not how gravity works. And while, yes, there are structural limits, mountains could only get so large before their own mass uh, creates problems and they begin to break apart in effect, thus reaching just a maximum limit. Every structure has a maximum amount of stress it can be under, even granite. Um, Rock arches are a property of typical erosion, fluid erosion, i.e., water, wind, etc. Those are really the two main fluids that we deal with in everyday life: the air and water. But fluid erosion. It makes sense. That's how it works. Sandstorms, blow a hole in that. You ever seen a sandblaster, Matt? That's how it works. Exactly how it works. Oh, rock tumblers. They work with the grit that builds up as the rocks bash into each other. Same idea, just at a very low scale. Just abrasion of some kind. You don't need the flood. It doesn't even make sense with the flood. It doesn't explain the physics of it.
rock arches have been standing for millions and millions of years without crumbling down from gravity? The answer is no. These rock arches
Brock, Bob is some guy who's not getting into super fun buddy Jesus heaven. Also, if I say a random name, it's a joke. It is just a joke reference to nobody. Unless there's already a meme in there. Like there is a Bob Nodell was a flat earther, the one who discovered the 15 degree per hour drift. He passed away, but it became common to say 15 degree per hour drift. Thanks, Bob, because of Sightman Dan. This is an unrelated hypothetical, Bob, but it was just the name I came up with. I usually come up with little names like that and just say, oh, this guy, that guy. Everyone's welcome except for Ted. So piss off, Ted, that kind of thing. In case there's someone in the audience who happens to have that name, it creates a bit of a funny thing.
arches were formed in the recent past by Noah's flood, by a globally cataclysmic event. And that's why they're still standing today, is because they were placed there in the recent past. They were formed in the recent history of the planet.
Relatively recent, but not as recent as you're thinking. Not for the reasons you're thinking. They're modern enough structures. We're not expecting geological formations like that, as relatively fragile as those are, to have lasted 2 billion years or something. But something that stonework that maybe a few 100,000, I don't know. Actually don't know erosion rates on those things because it's really not important. But I know it has nothing to do with your magic flood, and indeed doesn't make sense with it because you're not explaining how it actually is congruent. So you're failing miserably. I mean, you're kind of pathetic now that I have a chance to just, go at this stuff, Matt. Like, you're really pathetic.
And not millions and millions of years ago. My fifth piece of evidence would be hoodoos. Hoodoos are rock spires that often have very little debris at the bottom.
And they're very, very phallic. And they, too, are a side effect of erosion processes, but not the ones you're thinking of
them. Now, is it possible that these structures could be sitting there for millions of years and not have come crumbling down from gravity? Wouldn't these...
Well, gravity wouldn't cause them to crumble. They're structurally sound. They can support their own weight. They're big boys. They can handle standing up for a while. But they also wouldn't be millions of years old. The problem seems to be that you think the Earth is somehow static, even though plate tectonics is a known thing, and even you guys require a kind of hyper plate tectonics in the same way you require a hyper evolution to have happened for your 6,000 year world to make sense.
Rocks have eventually broken down and become completely flat with the Earth's crust, if millions of years of time were what had allowed them to be placed there. Let me tell you.
Yeah, because it wasn't millions of years. There again, thousands, hundreds. I don't know. I don't know, but I know millions is too much erosion time on this active of a planet. And if your flood was so cataclysmic, it wouldn't have carved out such gentle structures like that, so smooth, so, dare I say, precise in some ways. Because obviously, if it wasn't so, to the right spec, it would have collapsed. Um, it would have just leveled everything. Somehow having enough energy to carve along the sides, but somehow not carve through the middle. Just magically stop right there is ridiculous to propose. Unless you want to say it literally magically stop there. In which case, my God, you're special.
Tell you something. What placed these rock spires there, these hoodoos, was a globally cataclysmic event that happened in the recent past. Noah's flood is a fact of geology, and the reason that we know that is because of these things that we are now observing in science that you can test and verify to be true. My sixth piece of evidence would be mountains themselves. Many mountain ranges are made of bent rock. Now,
Did I say nothing new? Because nothing new. Also, it's only just now clicking with me that this is the video that Dan had covered earlier, so I'm not treading any new ground, but
according to Darwinists, the plates are moving 1 to 2 inches per year, and it causes
plate tectonics is completely irrelevant to Darwinian evolution, insofar as that concept being at all relevant to the tectonic movement of the plates of the Earth. Words, I can speak them sometimes. This constant Darwinist. First off, I don't fucking care about Charles Darwin in the slightest. And two, I actually know how to compartmentalize science and understand what aspects are what, where they relate and where they don't relate. You don't know a goddamn thing, except how to scam people.
Mountains to slowly get formed. But if that were true, how is it that you have mountains that are made up of bent rocks?
You have a lot of time. You have a lot of pressure. Plus some bonus heat usually helps because warm things tend to be a little more fluid, even if they're still rock hard. Give it a while of it constantly being stressed just the right way and it bends. Even rock will bend if given the right pressure over a long enough time. But again, you don't accommodate for that time. Yet simultaneously, you think that they could bend instantly in the flood when, under such conditions, the rocks would snap because it's far too much stress at far too sudden of a time period. It's all about it being spread out. Like you spread for Mr. Peel or whatever the hell you do in your backyard with your inflatable banana that you totally have back there, and the pink inflatable pony that Kent Hovind has in his bathroom. Prove me wrong. I've seen photos of it. Totally legit.
You cannot bend hard rock. It will break. It will shatter. What it means is that these layers would have had to have all been pliable all at the same time and pushed up
Nice, Brock.
rapidly through plate tectonics, and that's how you have mountains that are still standing today and in those positions because all of those layers were pliable during their formation. It's not that slow and gradual change in the Earth's crust.
If I may take a moment to deviate, bringing up Maddie Powlett, I'm most certain that's a reference to Willow the Wendigo, who, of course, I am familiar with from their collaboration with Emma Thorne. I believe that's how I learned of them. I sent them an email a little while back checking in and never did get a response, and I'm very sad because I hope they're okay because I hadn't seen them upload in a while, and I liked their content. And as I was getting in my stuff, I wanted to see if they'd be interested in some kind of collab because I like their style. Granted, I see no reason for someone to want to collab with my random profane ass, unless it's like a special case. But, stranger things can and have happened, and I thought that might be a fun one to a fun person to work with. I just prosed it though on, hey, are you okay? And just how's things going? And seen a video in a while. Hope you're doing well. And it just sucks that I hadn't got a response. I'm kind of bummed. So like, I hope she's okay. Really hope. Because that's some of those people you find them and you just really really like them and what they do and their style. Love it.
Caused mountains to be formed. Number 7 would be sharks that are buried with dinosaurs in the center of the United States. How is it possible that a wave of water could hit the center of the United States to be able to bury hundreds of thousands of different animals?
Wasn't a wave of water there, buddy. The land you're talking about was once coastline because the earth has changed. Once again, you think everything is static. Yet you acknowledged earlier that we talk about tectonic shift. So which is it? Do we think the earth is static or do we think the plates move? Because it can't be both. Pick a side, motherfucker.
With sea life, sharks, dinosaurs, and so on and so forth, all the dead center of the US. That means there would have been a globally catastrophic flood that would have been able to hit the center of the United States with waves from the oceanic coast. Number 8, we find whales in the desert. How did they get there? How do you get whale fossils that are preserved? Because remember, a fossil has to be rapidly buried by sediment in order to be preserved. How do you get it in the Sahara Desert? The answer is that a globally catastrophic flood called Noah's Flood actually happened and placed whales in the Sahara Desert that were
Yeah, just in the Sahara Desert. Also, I don't know enough on this to provide exact details and such, but it's funny that it just be that particular spot and nowhere else. It's funny you don't find whale fossils in the middle of, the fucking jungle or something. Oh, but Chris, it's just too much of the conditions are so different. Da, 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 da. It's like, well, you're talking post flood, so they should be there just as much as anywhere else. I mean, you should find everything everywhere if there was a global flood, and you don't. You just don't. Also, if I had to take a wild guess, it's probably ancient seabeds are what he's showing here, which may or may not be in areas like the Sahara Desert at certain spots that are known to have once been ancient seabeds or something. And that's why we find the remains of such creatures. That's just me taking a guess.
now finding later on as we do scientific research. Number 9, fossils. Think about it. Fossils require rapid burial in order to be preserved. So if you're finding things like fossilized ichthyosaurs giving birth, what that tells you is that it doesn't take 10,000 years to get a fossil, like Darwinists assume.
Don't know the details on the ichthyosaur giving birth or if it's just a coincidental laying of stuff, what have you. It's pretty irrelevant. Again, you'd think we'd find a lot of different stuff mixed in. You think we'd find some fossilized humans. You think we'd find a single fossilized human in any of this shit. A fossilized horse. A fossilized anything modern. And we don't. I wonder why, Matt. Can't possibly think of why we don't find the remains of a single normal-ass creature from your magic book of Bronze Age bullshit. No idea why.
It only takes a few moments in some cases. That would be an awfully long birth if it actually took that long for that fossil to form. You find fossilized schools of fish.
Hey, yeah, if it died, that birth ain't happening. It's kind of sitting there dead, and the baby's gonna die, if not already dead. Could have been dead. Could have been a stillborn, and things fucked up. Also, wait, that's not a fish either. It's giving live birth. Jesus fucking Christ! Just the more you think about it, the more it's like the classic. The more you look at the picture, the worse it gets. God, you're a headache-inducing piece of shit, Matt.
That are all together. We find fossilized fish eating other fish. Does it take 10,000 plus years to have a meal? These organisms were buried so quickly that they were buried in the act of whatever they were doing. You have a school of fish sticking together, and they didn't even have time to scatter because they were buried so quickly by the flood of Noah.
Don't know the details on that one either, but again, you think we'd find that everywhere. Because the way creationists talk is as if fossils, like literally everything was fossilized when the flood happened. That there is, if you dig at the right layer, an entire snapshot of the whole world at that moment just chilling.
Number 10, we find cold rock that has been subducted into the hot molten mantle of the earth. And this, I would say, is probably the most powerful piece of evidence for Noah's flood. How is it that you have cold rock that's 10 miles thick that has been subducted into the molten mantle where you have
Are you talking about the two large masses that are likely remnants of Theia, the planetoid that impacted us and caused the ejective material that formed the moon? Are you talking about those two? Because you're not describing anything worth a damn. Not that I expect you to, but this is a real terrible explanation of whatever the hell it is you're actually talking about.
hot rock all around it? How is that possible if slow and gradual change 1 to 2 inches per year is pulling that rock down into the mantle? What it shows us is that in the recent past, the crust of the earth was broken up and pieces of rock were going under one another and literally causing mountains to form, as we covered earlier. But then we realized, since they're still cold, that this catastrophe must have happened in the recent past. So if you find cold rock,
That doesn't even make sense. Doesn't follow at all. Just no. There isn't even something to argue against with that. What you're saying makes literally no fucking sense. Your statements are just plain wrong. Like 100%, not 99.5% like most of the crap you guys say.
rocks that are in the hot mantle of the earth, and they're from the crust of the earth, they had to have been rapidly subducted. And let me say this too. If something like that happened today, if you had a
Hey, thanks, Carl. Yeah, I stream when I get bored. And if you notice, I tend to get bored a lot. Got a bit of an ADHD problem. So I'll do some stuff, then decide, you know what, I want to stream. Then I go back to doing stuff. And back and forth, back and forth. That's how I occupy my days. Well, days that I'm not working.
10-mile thick piece of rock from the oceanic crust that was broken up and rapidly subducted, we would experience such a globally cataclysmic
And yes, that's what I was thinking at best is just cooler than the surrounding rock, not cold, which any number of reasons can accommodate that.
process here that we would have another global flood. These are just some facts that I wanted to share with you about why we know that Noah was a real person, that Adam and Eve were real people, and that you can trust the Bible and what God's Word has told us about these things such as geology and the book of Genesis. And I'd like to
I keep on forgetting to hit K. I use the mouse. No, bro. No. The Bible doesn't say anything about anything that's worth a damn. It doesn't contort with any aspect of reality. And your incredulity, which is all you've had here, it means precisely fuck all. All right? You got that, Mr. Powell? Matty Powellette, keeper of Mr. Peel, Professor Peel? You spread yourself thusly for the peel, as Hovind fillets the pink unicorn? Yeah.
end with this thought. Noah was actually warning people, and he was telling everybody, guys, get on the boat. There's going to be a tremendous flood that's going to come to this.
Big Bad Mama, our resident geologist. The subducted oceanic crust is cooler and denser than the continental crust, and seawater is carried down, which also cools the rock. Thank you. As I was thinking about it as we went on past it, I was thinking something like that, and I knew seawater would have played a role. But that graphic he showed looked like the material that's from left over from Theia, we think. So that's why I rolled with that.
World, and it's going to destroy the planet. It's going to wreak havoc.
Reading a journal. Yeah. We're presuming people like Matt Powell can actually read. Yeah, he's just pulling it straight from his ass.
On the earth. And people laughed at him and they mocked him. We're also warning people, just as Noah did, about a coming judgment. And I believe that the flood of
Thank you so very much, Carl. I do try to be funny, and yeah, truth bombs are just lay out what I can. And sometimes being very honest and just being a total quid about it. I don't know exactly how to respond to this, but, you know, I know he's full of it for this and that and the other. I don't know. Guys, get on the boat. Dude, Brock got 2 fudge bars for $1 each. Kick ass.
of Noah is the story that authenticates the entire Bible. If a global flood actually
In my last stream, I was mentioning that the Bible is a weird book because the most important part of it is a tiny section at the end, versus all the extra stuff at the beginning. But all that seems to matter for the beginning, to establish the need for the second half of the Jesus concept, is Genesis and a bit of Exodus. So it's honestly weird that the book is structured the way it is, because it feels like there's a whole lot that could have been removed and it would have worked just fine. And I was like, but they obsess over Genesis, especially. That's what they care most about. And this is how it is with young Earth creationists. It's all about the flood, all about that genealogy. They're just so fucking obsessed with it. Care more about that than they do Jesus. What does that tell you?
happened and the entire planet was wiped out. What that shows us is that there must have been somebody that built an ark of some sort and protected all of the animal kinds on this seaworthy vessel.
Yes, that's why there's so much extinct crap everywhere. It all died after the fact. Just 99% of all life was saved on that ark, or examples of life was saved on that ark, and then it all just up and fucking died afterwards. So seems pretty goddamn pointless. But what do I know? I'm not the infallible creator of the universe. I'm just some guy who actually fucking exists. Huh. Fucking stupid, man.
And what that tells us is, as well, is that God's word is true. That Genesis
God's a lying liar. And by that I mean the fucker doesn't exist. Get over it.
This is actually a historical account of the past, and that you can put your faith in it. Faith is defined as a...
No. Nah. You're just wrong, okay? Ah, damn it, there, did it again.
confidence or trust in someone or something. My friend, put your faith in Jesus. Put your faith in the Word of God. He'll never let you down. If you believe in Darwinian evolution...
Well, this is actually the video I was going to go to next, so it works out, but yeah. S'mores Pop Tarts wondering how big those fudge bars that Brock got were. And yeah, where is that ark? Where is the ark? Not kind of Matt Powell to use the word kind. Also paused him at the perfect moment. Gooface. All right, let's see what he has to say. That evolution is an anti-scientific scam. Let's do this.
You have been scammed. You've bought into a lie. Let me tell you, there is no evidence to suggest that our ancestor was a jellyfish or a rat or some sort of primate.
Wow, two of those three things you said are a complete load of shit, and our ancestors were definitely primates up to the points that primates even began to form, because we're still primates. We're primates, we're monkeys, simiiforms, apes as a subset of old world monkeys. Humans are apes. You're an ape, I'm an ape, my whole audience is apes. And that's just fine and dandy. I fucking love being an ape.
The evidence, when we look in science, suggests that we descended from two humans. We can take our DNA and we can actually trace it back using the Y chromosome and also mitochondrial DNA to see that we descended from two initial ancestors.
No. First off, the Y chromosomal Adam and mitochondrial Eve are metaphorical constructs, names applied for these individuals as a matter of symbolism that hopefully scientists are finally going to realize, hey, maybe we should just stop giving religion any credence because they're going to manipulate this crap. There's a massive time difference between the two. The Y chromosomal thing shows, I forget exactly the details, but one of the earliest common breaking points for the Y chromosome. And mitochondrial Eve addresses the whole mitochondria, how that DNA, their particular independent organ, well, not independent anymore, but they're their own microorganism that is inside of our cells. They have their own particular DNA, and you inherit that actually from your mother. So it becomes kind of a tracer, and is the way you figure out who someone's mama is. Mitochondrial DNA is actually better than any other method. Um, but yeah, they're not 6,000 years ago. They're drastically separated by multiple millennia in their own right, if not longer. They're way further back than your 6,000 years. And what it means is completely irrelevant. It's just another last common ancestor kind of situation. Nothing more.
Roughly 6,000 years ago. So in science, we're finding all sorts of things that actually contradict evolution and that disprove evolution. You think about the Big Bang Theory, they're claiming that all of the matter that you see, everything around you, was condensed into an infinitely dense hot point, and then that hot point somehow exploded, and here we are. It created time, space, and nature. But the fact of the matter is,
Oh, he's doing something different from Hovind, time, space, and nature. That's not what the Big Bang is. That's a pretty crude explanation at best, with some parts glaringly wrong. I would love to see you wrap your head around the idea of Planck temperature, Planck time, or anything involving a Planck variable, honestly. Um, but even more so, until you creationists get a clue that matter and energy are the same thing, and that in one way to look at it, matter is just slowed down energy. What you have to say about physics at those extreme moments, those extreme values, is completely fucking irrelevant. And indeed, anything you have to say about most any physics is pretty fucking irrelevant, because you're missing point one of anything reasonably worth a damn.
that would be a violation of the laws of thermodynamics. You don't get order out of chaos. Not only that, you can't get something from nothing.
Except you believe in a god ex nihilo that always existed. Also, it doesn't violate any laws. Not that the laws would even have technically been applicable at that point, potentially, because everything we know about reality applies after the beginning of cosmic inflation. But no one's saying it's from nothing beyond a metaphorical, literal interpretation insofar as one stops thinking about reality as a thing in that. It gets very complicated to articulate, and that's why so many people have a problem with it. But the nothing that should be thought of is an absence of normal properties of physics and reality. As I interpret whatever state one could, if you were somehow to be external to the singularity, which again, intrinsically not possible, but that's what would be around it in effect. If there again was a concept as around it, it would be a true nothingness, but the singularity point would be there. Again, talking about this as if time even exists in this, which again, it doesn't. See, stuff gets really complicated to think about, and our little monkey brains can't quite process it. But some of us try, and some of us, I think, get kind of close to understanding it. And when we crunch numbers, we get some interesting values. You just scoff away and go, no, God.
And energy can only be converted. It cannot be created or destroyed.
Yes, that's why, every single value of anything would theoretically have been inside the singularity, as one way, again, to think about things. That's why I go with it being something of Planck temperature. So you have a maximum energy value, a maximum heat level, so to speak. Do you know what the Planck temperature is, Matt? How about you look it up and get back to me? 'Cause that's a really, really big number. Really big number. And I think it pretty well accommodates everything. That much energy. I think it does the job nicely.
That's the first law of thermodynamics. So to say that you could take a rock that's tiny and let it morph into a rock that's gigantic like a boulder, that's not possible. But in the Big Bang Theory, supposedly a piece of dust, a small speck of dust, exploded or rapidly expanded and formed planets and galaxies and oceans. My friend, Darwinian evolution and Big Bang cosmology is all a big farce. It's not true. The idea that we descended from slime, that soup was eroded from rocks and we came into existence from that soup, that's a lie. That's not true. You don't get order out of chaos, but you also don't get life from non-living material. You can't get
Yes, because everything we eat is alive the moment we eat it. You know, the chicken I was eating yesterday wasn't technically dead. All the elements that make up life only exist in living things. They don't exist elsewhere. You never find carbon outside of life. You never find oxygen and hydrogen and so fucking ridiculous.
unconscious dead material to just become alive on its own. An outside force, i.e., the Lord God, had to create all of the matter and energy we see, as well as the living organisms that are on planet Earth. And so they're claiming in science today, and I find it kind of hilarious, that one of our earliest ancestors was a jellyfish. And I think
Literally no one says that except idiotic creationists trying to create a ridiculous straw man of actual science.
that just sounds funny. You know, you ask people, do you think that your ancestor was a jellyfish? And they always chuckle. They think it's kind of funny because it is ridiculous. It is ludicrous
Because the fact that you ask it seriously shows how idiotic you guys are.
and kind of hilarious. And it really would be funny if so many
Hey Jesper, how you doing? Good to see ya.
people did not actually believe in it. You have to understand, when you're talking to somebody who believes in evolution and who believes in this stuff, you're talking with an individual that takes it seriously like somebody would take their religion. When you debunk evolution, in their eyes,
Not to that degree, but people who understand reality really hate when idiots like you come along and just make up shit. So yeah, you're gonna get a little ticked because idiots like you are retarding the nation.
you're attacking the foundation of their religion. And they often dig in and will not listen to what you're saying. So it's important
It's not a religion, and nobody listens to what you have to say because what you have to say is idiotic. And as I've said before, we've moved past it as an understanding of the world.
to approach people who believe in evolution with love and compassion, but it's also so important to make sure to simply point out the falsehoods and the stupidity of this, that we descended from a fish-like creature. I mean, come on. They're claiming that Curious George was our ancestor, that an ape-like animal was our ancestor. I think people should really consider being more skeptical of what they're being taught in universities across America. We're finding dinosaur blood cells. Think about that. Dinosaurs in evolution supposed
It's still going on. I wish Mary Schweitzer could just outright sue over this. I would love it. Would absolutely love for her to just make bank off of every single dumbass creationist manipulating her research, lying about what was actually done to promote this garbage. Reminder, she's a Christian herself.
supposedly existed 65 million years ago. Yet we're finding intact dinosaur organs, blood cells, collagen in dinosaur bones. Remember, collagen is the soft material that's inside of your bones. It degrades so fast once you die, once any organism dies. We are finding so much evidence that dinosaurs existed much more recently than people have presupposed. We are finding
Except we're not. You just lie.
just incredible things in science today that are not really being covered. We find proof of Noah's flood. We find whales on mountains. How did they get there? How did they get preserved on top of mountains? God is real. You can put your faith in.
We explained earlier that you're not finding whales on mountains. And we explained earlier, sea life. Mountaintops. Excuse me. Mountaintops used to be seafloor because the earth, it is a changing.
In Jesus, that he actually existed. 98.9% of scholars believe that Jesus existed.
I don't think that number is accurate. And it wouldn't even matter if a person with that name who the story could roughly be attributed to existed, that doesn't mean they were some miraculous magic man. That's a different set of claims.
It is incredible the evidence that we have for Jesus, the evidence that we have for Noah's flood. You can put your faith in it.
Yes, Falk, Mary Schweitzer used to be a creationist. I forgot to bring that up.
You don't have to question it. What I would question and be skeptical of is the idea that we descended from rat-like ancestors, from shrews, that shrew-like creatures somehow conceived humans over generations through mutations. Mutations are defined as
Whales in the mesh, Hovind.
copying errors. Think about it. Through all these errors, rats are going to turn into people? Come on, that is ridiculous. Like I said, evolution never happens. The Big Bang.
Yes, that's ridiculous. Some God making people out of dirt? Now that's ridiculous. It's been explained to you ad nauseum about the principles of mutation, natural selection, how it all plays together. It's not our job to educate you ass clowns. And honestly, the entire remotely scientifically minded community is absolutely sick of you dumbasses even having a platform, having people actually pay attention to you, because you're so obviously fucking wrong, so obviously deceptive. It's sickening that nothing is done about it, that this kind of just outright misinformation is just left to be.
It never happened. All of this stuff, abiogenesis, all of these atheistic philosophies are untrue. They're unscientific. Evolution is an unscientific scam. My friend, do not be tricked, do not be scammed, do not be conned into thinking that evolution is even a possibility. Yes, populations can make minor.
And I'm a little offended by him insulting rats in there. And I must stress he says rats because the earliest mammals are always described as rat-like ancestors, so that people immediately picture something that's generally adequate for what those creatures would have looked like, what their morphology was like.
Changes. But mutations are causing us to go downwards and not upwards. They're causing us to die out. Mutations did.
Matt Powell is most definitely a dingleberry, magically enchanted, brought to life. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. Matt Powell comes from a piece of poo.
Not create humans over generations from soup. It's not true. God created you and I, God loves you and I, and God is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Hope you enjoyed this
Possibly, Allie.
video. God bless.
Well, that was a video. All right, well, that's gonna be the stream. I've had as much of Matt Powell as I can take. Hope everyone had a good time. I may have to do some editing and stuff to this one, so we'll see where things go. But yeah, as always, thanks for stopping in. I'll catch everyone next time.